Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. This is Vicky with Drop the Mic, coming back with another episode. And today's episode is called My Jesus is Not Magical. Now let me say that again so it really settles in your spirit. My Jesus is not magical. Because sometimes we get that confused. Sometimes we start thinking that everything God does is like some kind of trick, like it's a snap of the fingers, like a genie in a bottle. But that's not who Jesus is. That's not how he works. And honestly, when we think of him, the way we miss the depth, the depth of what he actually does in our lives, Jesus is not about magic. He's about relationship. He's not about tricks. He's about transformation. He's not about illusions. He's about truth. Say that again. Jesus is not about magic. He is about relationships. He's not about tricks. He's about transformation. He's not about illusions. He's about truth. See, magic is something you control, but Jesus, you don't control him. He leads you. You say it again. See, magic is something you control, but Jesus, you don't control him. He leads you. Magic is instant, flashy, and temporary. But what Jesus does is lasting, real, and rooted in purpose. When people say, I want a miracle, sometimes what they really mean is, I want something fast, easy, and without process. But Jesus doesn't always move like that. Yes, he can perform miracles, absolutely. But even his miracles weren't about show. They were about purpose, faith, and revealing who he is. Think about it. When Jesus healed people, it wasn't to impress a crowd like a magician on a stage. It was to restore lives. It was to show compassion, and it was to bring people back into wholeness, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And here's the truth that we don't always want to hear. A lot of what Jesus does in our lives doesn't feel magical at all. Let's say that again. A lot of what Jesus does in our lives doesn't feel magical at all. And I do apologize for sounding like I'm going to lose my voice, but it only happens when I get up here. Sometimes it feels like waiting. Sometimes it feels like pressure. Sometimes it feels like silence. But just because it doesn't feel magical doesn't mean he's not working. Let me say that again. Just because it doesn't feel magical doesn't mean he's not working. Because blessings don't always come wrapped in glitter. Wow. Because blessings don't always come wrapped in glitter. Sometimes they come wrapped in lessons. Sometimes they come wrapped in closed doors. Sometimes they come wrapped in not yet or even no. And that's where people get it twisted. They think it doesn't happen instantly. Then God must not be in it. But Jesus is not a magician. He is a builder. He builds your character. He builds your faith, and he builds your strength. Magic skips the process. Jesus uses the process. Ooh, say it again. Magic skips the process. Jesus uses the process. And I know nobody likes the process. Nobody wakes up and say, I hope today I get stretched, tested, and refined. But that's where the real blessings are formed. Because when Jesus blesses you, it's not just about giving you something, it's about preparing you to handle it. So magic can give you something instantly, but it can't sustain you. Jesus might take his time, but when he gives it to you, you're ready. That's the difference. And let's talk about blessings upon blessings, because that's real. That's what he does. But even those blessings don't always show up the way we expect. A blessing might be peace in the middle of chaos. Oh, say it again. Blessing might be peace in the middle of chaos. A blessing might be strength when you thought you were going to break. A blessing might be walking away from something that wasn't good for you, even when it hurt. Those are blessings too. But because they don't look magical, we sometimes overlook them. We're waiting for fireworks and for God is, hold on. We're waiting for fireworks and God is giving us foundation. Say it again. We're waiting for fireworks and God is giving us foundation. We're waiting for instant change and God is working on long-term transformation. And here's something else to think about. Magic is often about illusion. It makes you think something is real when it's not. And let me say that again. Here's something else to think about. Magic is often about illusion. It makes you think something is real when it's not. But Jesus does the opposite. He reveals what's real even when it's uncomfortable. He'll show you things about yourself that you didn't even want to see. He'll remove people or situations that you thought you needed. He'll redirect your path when you were so sure you knew where you were going. And in those moments, it doesn't feel magical. It feels hard. It feels confusing. It might even feel painful, but it's necessary because Jesus isn't here to entertain you. He's here to transform you. Say it again, because Jesus isn't here to entertain you. He's here to transform you. And transformation is not a magic trick. It's a process. It takes time. It takes surrender and it takes trust. And trust is a big one because when you stop expecting magic, you start learning how to trust. You start saying, even if I don't see it right now, I know you're working. Even if it doesn't happen the way I thought, I trust your plan. Even if it's longer than I want, I believe your timing is right. That's real faith. And not to mention, when he does stuff like that, he gets you involved. It's just not him giving a blessing. You believe, and you believe bigger and bigger and more and more. So it's not just about it's just not about the illusions. He gets you involved. Not the kind of faith that's based on instant results, but the kind that stands firm even when there's a delay. And let's be honest, if everything happened like magic, where would your faith even grow? See what I said? Where would your faith even grow? If every prayer was answered immediately, you wouldn't learn patience. If every time the door opened instantly, you wouldn't learn discernment. If every situation worked out the way you wanted it to, you wouldn't learn trust. So no, my Jesus is not magical. He's intentional. He's consistent. He's faithful. And he's working even when you don't see it. So instead of looking for magic, start looking for movement. Ooh, say it again. So instead of looking for magic, start looking for movement. Look for the small changes. Look for the growth in the mind in your mindset. Look for your strength you didn't have before. Look for your peace that didn't even make sense. That's him. That's Jesus working in your life. Now, not with tricks, not with illusions, but with truth, purpose, and love. And when those blessings start to stack up, because they will, you will realize something powerful. It wasn't magic. It was God all along. And and it was better than magic because what he gives you is real. What he builds in you is lasting. And what he does through you has purpose. So the next time you feel like nothing is happening, remind yourself, this ain't magic. This is a process. And Jesus is right there in the middle of it, working, building, preparing, and blessing. One step at a time. So this is Vicky with Drop the Mic. And I'll see you next episode because Jesus is working on my blessing. That's Vicky with a mic drop moment, ending it on that note.